Hey guys, John here with a quick look at Darksiders 2 Deathinitive Edition. Coming from Gunfire Games, this re-release of Darksiders 2 is a rather strange and unexpected release. This isn't just the PC version of Darksiders 2 running on consoles. A lot of new assets were created and the entire game is relit. It's clear that a lot of work has been poured into this creation, but is it really worth it in the end? In looking at the performance metrics, that's really the question we're asking ourselves here. At this point in the generation, if a game is going to be re-released on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, we would at least expect a solid 60 frames per second experience, as we saw with the Nathan Drake collection. What we have here instead is a game that targets 30 frames per second just like the original, with an adaptive VSync solution in place, at least on PS4. It's an improvement over the original console version of the game, but it doesn't really deliver the kind of performance we'd expect. Taking it for what it is, we at least need to see how well it can sustain its 30 frames per second target. So as you've seen by now, we have a three-way split here, running with the original Xbox 360 version slotted in on the right. This original version turns in 30 frames per second with a noticeable amount of screen tearing popping up during gameplay. The frame time graph over there on the left demonstrates just what kind of an experience we're looking at here. So in that sense, we can see a much more consistent experience on Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Yet once we enter some of the more complex scenes, it's the Xbox One that starts to struggle. It's nowhere near as intrusive as the 360 original, but it isn't something we'd call definitive either. These same scenes turn in better performance on PlayStation 4 at least. As you may have noticed by now, the PS4 delivers a relatively steady level of performance with only a handful of torn frames cropping up during playback. The fact that there is any loss in performance here at all is disappointing, but at least it adheres to its target frame rate successfully. It should also be noted that both versions run at 1080p resolution with 4x anisotropic filtering in place. Shadow map quality is also improved on PS4, though character shadows are strangely low resolution on both. Curiously, there are some strange differences between the two generation versions of the game that we noticed. The snow texture layer in the early stages of the game, for instance, appears to have been reduced on PlayStation 4 in comparison to the Xbox One version. Also, the overall look of the game is darker on PS4, more closely resembling the PC original instead. So where does that leave us then? The visual upgrades, which we'll cover in more detail later this week, definitely result in a different looking game. Whether these changes were worth the loss in performance is really a matter of opinion, but we would have been happy enough with a package including both Darksiders games running on PC settings at 60 frames per second. Still, Darksiders 2 is a pretty slick game on its own, and one that I certainly enjoyed when it was first released. If you haven't played it yet and are itching for a pseudo-Zelda style game on the current generation of consoles, it's not a bad choice. Ultimately, the PS4 version is the best console iteration of the game yet, and manages to turn in reasonably stable performance even if it's not the 60 frames per second we would have liked. So if you have that option, we'd recommend that version of the game. Anyways, that wraps it up for now. We'll have more on the game soon, but if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time though, this is John signing off.